Bored of standing in place and watching the television in a shop window, I pull myself away from the tacky display with little effort. After living in Yamaku, the city seems like an entirely different world. No running in the halls, calm and orderly conduct is to be used at all times in the classrooms. Students are to exit rooms after checking both directions for oncomers. Elevators are reserved for movement impaired students. Single file on stairs. Compared to such a strict, almost regimental standards, the city's shopping arcade might as well be in a strange country. While the school may have its fair share of hustle and bustle during the festival, the outside world is much different. It's strange. Having lived in a metropolitan city before my accident, this should feel more natural than Yamaku and the surrounding town ever could. Yet it feels foreign somehow. The elevated walkways and tall buildings, each adorned with billboards taller than any three people, don't do anything to distract me from the passing crowd's reactions. Lily keeps one hand on my shoulder, the other holding her cane, which taps the ground with a metronome-like steadiness. Looking over to her, that neutral smile of hers still holds. Having only seen her in her school uniform, I'd not have recognized her as she sat on a bench waiting for me to come, if not for her cane propped up against it and her distinctive hair. I can't tell whether they're glancing at her due to her height, her foreign looks, her obvious blindness, or all three. Not that any of those would make the situation any less comfortable than it is. Do you have any ideas of where to look first, Hisao? Her soft voice breaks me out of my line of thought. I can't imagine that she's failing to notice the attention she garners, but she seems unfazed by it. I get the feeling she's the type to enjoy walking outside, so she might be used to it by now. I answer her, not really. This is my first time in this city, so I've got no idea where to go. She furrows her brow in thought, planning a route for us to take. And come to think of it, a way to communicate it. Something I've noticed in the time I've been with her is how, when deep in thought, she lacks close to any form of body language to show it. Her expression may change, but not a hint of movement shows. She seems to have little in the way of sweeping physical gestures in general, though, so I've assumed it's part of her reserved nature. Is there a large electronics store near here? I take a quick look around, mostly finding clothing stores. After a few seconds, I notice a store with a bright blue sign some distance away that fits her description. Yep, it's just a bit ahead of us, I say. Shall we go in that direction? Thankfully, it's just the information she needed. With a nod, we start off and head toward Lily's unknown destination, landmarks being our guide. Here you go, 1 vanilla, 1 chocolate, the store owner says. I hand the money over the counter and take the cones to the railing that Lily's sitting on. I can't believe I let her trick me like this. She not only led me to an ice cream stall, but also got me to buy her some. At least she gave me the money for hers. Sure enough, she's patiently waiting where I'd left her. I guess she was planning on making the day an event rather than a simple shopping trip. I call out to her and slowly place the vanilla cone in her outstretched hands, being careful to make sure she has a good hold of it before letting go. At least her tastes are fairly normal. I was worried she'd ask for some weird flavor when she first asked. Here's the change, I tell her. It's okay, keep it. I moved to protest, but realized the futility of doing so over such a small amount. I slipped the coin into my pocket, supplementing my meager allowance ever so slightly. Lily shows no signs of wanting to get up, so I take a seat beside her and start eating my own ice cream. The summer weather's nice, I tell her. Hopefully it will hold out for a while. You too? I'm beginning to think I'm the only person who prefers winter. I contemplate her statement for a long moment. Yeah, I say, I think you might be. It draws the intended reaction. She's cute when she's pouting. Still, I say, I can't really imagine what's so good about winter. You can't go out without bundling up, and you still freeze anyway. I used to live further north, where there'd be plenty of snow to play in, so it's a little nostalgic. I don't like the heat very much either. At least you can wear a skirt, I say, so don't complain about that. She gives an amused giggle as we both get back to finishing off our already melting cones. I idly sit and watch the crowds going by as we eat, catching bits and pieces of conversation. Looking to Lily, I see her dutifully licking her ice cream from the top downwards, blissfully unaware of the fact that it's beginning to melt. It's melting, I say. Where? Down a bit? She lowers her mouth from the top of the cone, but has no idea of exactly where the ice cream's dripping. What follows is a game of guiding her left and right until she finally finds it. To any onlooker, it must seem absolutely bizarre. A girl with her eyes closed, turning the cone over and over as the guy next to her gives instructions. A strange variant of childhood blindfold games, maybe. In good time, we finally finish our treats and while away the time conversing casually. Caught mid-sentence, Lily perks her head in her trademark manner. It's an unmistakable sign that something's caught her attention. Ah, she says. What is it? Is Akira somewhere over there? I think I heard her. I raise an eyebrow as I look in the direction she's facing, somewhat doubtful of her ability to pick out Akira's lone voice in the den. Sure enough, though, a blonde girl in a suit can be seen through the tiny gaps between people walking every which way. I raise a hand and wave, trying to catch her attention. Sato! Hey, Sato! I yell out. She stops in her tracks and looks toward me, evidently noticing my calls. As she does, I notice someone walking beside her. I can't get a good look at whoever it is, though, before the two begin walking towards where we are. As they reach us, Lily and I stand and dust ourselves off. Akira? Hey, you two, she answers. She nods toward me, a gesture which I quickly return. My gaze shifts toward the young girl next to her, and our eyes meet. As they do, Akira plops a hand onto her head, a move which doesn't seem to faze her. I don't believe we've met. I'm Hideaki. Pleased to meet you, Hisao. A guy's name, huh? Guess I just dodged a bullet there. He bows, somewhat restrained by Akira's hand being on his head. Oh, Hideaki's here too. Are you well? Akira's been taking very good care of me, thank you. Akira grins as if to affirm the point and rubs his hand hard, dragging it around in a circular motion. His dreary face doing this is somewhat amusing. Uncle's out on business again, Akira says, so I'm just taking him around town for today. I'd have preferred to be spending the day on a date with my boyfriend, but... Hideaki gives a cough to try and redirect Akira's thoughts. As he does so, though, I find mine wandering. They're related? And further, as first cousins? I suppose that explains why she's taking care of him in any case. Come to think of it, Hideaki, how did you know my name, I ask. Akira told me. Being a Yamaku student, I suppose you're disabled in some way? Not everyone in Yamaku's disabled, I answer, which I only learned a handful of days ago. I give silent thanks to Shizune and Misha for their stream of information about how the school works. Because of them, I found out that since the school will accept practically anybody suffering from non-mental disabilities, it doesn't discriminate against healthy people either. It seems unlikely that many in good health would enroll there, though. While the standard of education is pretty high, it's extremely isolated and very much focused on helping disabled students. You're dodging the question, he says. Damn, he's sharp. Before I can say another word, though, he decides to take a stab at it himself. If I were to call it myself, your heart? Akira looks mildly curious at me, her interest piqued as well. That sure was a lucky guess. How did you... You show no missing limbs or deformities, he says, so external disabilities are out. Considering the lack of any strange mannerisms, it's also unlikely you'd have any mental disability. But Yamaku doesn't take mentally disabled students, Lilly says. I know. Leaving that aside, the only possibility left is that of internal disabilities. I didn't know which one you might bear, so I guessed, correctly as it turns out, and your reaction confirmed my guess. More than a little bemused, I look to Akira. She grins and shrugs, obviously taking some enjoyment out of her partner's deductions. He's sharp, yes, but more than a little unsympathetic. Logical, but lacking in tact. His attitude reminds me of Shizune in a way, as do his looks. May I ask why you're staring at me? Surely I'm not that unusual a specimen, he says. Does he not know how unusual he looks? I could overlook the spats and clothing as just being coincidental, but the ribbon in his hair really is too much. This is entirely beside the point, though. Sorry, I tell him. You just remind me of someone. Akira gives him a sharp jab with her elbow. Told you you're not that much different from her, she says. He coughs into his hand to try and maintain an upright and serious demeanor. I see you've met my sister then, he says. Perhaps my full name might help you. I am Hideaki Hakamichi. You're probably thinking of my sister, Shizune Hakamichi. Oh, so he's Shizune's brother. Wait a minute. If Hideaki is the son of Akira's uncle, and Shizune is his sister, then that means Lilly and Shizune's fathers are brothers-in-law. Therefore... Lilly and Shizune are first cousins? I blurt out. Lilly groans in an uncharacteristically unrestrained manner. The reaction earns an amused smirk from her sister. The enmity between the two just took on another meaning. I had thought it simply a matter of difficulty of communication between the two, but a family feud makes things much more complicated. You can choose your friends, Akira says, but you can't choose your family. She gives a half-hearted shrug. She mustn't give as much weight to the two's conflict as I do. Well, that's how it is. What are you two up to anyway on this fine day? She continues. We're shopping for Hanako's birthday present. The day will be coming up soon, so this is the last chance we'll have before school starts again for the week. Akira makes a strange face, as if Lilly had just said that the sky wasn't blue and the clouds not white. Isn't her birthday on the 10th next month? She asks. Yes. Why? Is something wrong? Akira's face seems to collapse. It's an utterly unbefitting expression for someone so rowdy and headstrong. The folks didn't call you yet, she says. As Lily shakes her head cluelessly, I look at Hideaki to see if he knows anything about it. A simple shrug is his only answer. For a moment, Akira ponders what to do before smiling once again. The fact that she can hide her emotions so quickly and effectively is unsettling. Hey, Shorty, sorry, but could you hang with Hisao for a while? He nods and waves her off, Akira placing an arm on Lily's shoulder as she guides her away and out of earshot. And so, I'm alone with Shorty. So, nice weather, isn't it? I say. It seems so. I guess they dumped us. Indeed, he replies. What a farcical attempt at small talk. I've got no idea of how to talk to this guy, and his robotic responses aren't helping. Blood and a stone come to mind. Without another word, he begins to rock on his feet in an obvious gesture of boredom with his discussion. He really is like a little kid, despite his serious demeanor. Suspecting the conversation over, I decide to accomplish what I came here to do in the first place. I'm going to go search for a present, I tell him. Coming? Not much else to do. In a little while, we come to a small shop beside a convenience store. For once, the store windows aren't filled with electronics and computer games, but dolls, stuffed bears, and all manners of wood-crafted oddities. Othello's Antiques, I read. An antique store? Well, if there's anything in this town that'd suit Hanako, I guess it'd be here. I reach for the old-looking door handle, but pull back at the last minute as I realize my companion's gone adrift. Not coming in, I ask. I'll just be in the newsstand for a while. Don't mind me, he says. His voice makes it painfully clear he has zero interest in what's in the store, and that he doesn't feel obligated to follow me. As he wanders off without another word, I push the thick wooden door and enter the store, a bell above me ringing out. The musty smell of old books and wooden shelves is distinctly anachronistic. I look to the counter beside the door. The graying man beside it sits there silently, reading a tattered book. He certainly fits the look of the place. Slowly wandering through the aisles, the person I'm reminded of as I inspect each handcrafted or imported oddity in turn isn't Hanako. Crouching down, I examine the ancient oak desk inside the shop window. At least 30 dolls, all varying wildly in size and make. The only similarity between them is the long Victorian dresses they wear. I turn the price tag of one that looks to be about waist high. It's not in my price bracket. At all. I do the same to each of them, getting more and more depressed as they get smaller and smaller in size. That is, until I reach the very smallest one. It's affordable, just, yet of quality to make, and with long auburn hair and a little blue dress. I decide that it's the kind of present Hanako would appreciate. Pretty looking and far from gaudy. After I carefully pick it up, I decide to keep looking around the store. I'm not sure whether it's because I like the atmosphere or out of simple curiosity. Peeking around the corner before I go to the next aisle, I see that the shelves in this one are stocked with wooden toys, from toy cars to intricate automatons. Tucked behind a line of nutcrackers, I notice a little plain wooden box. It feels surprisingly light as I pick it up with my free hand. The lid needs only the smallest movement to pop open, the little metal drum inside beginning to rotate immediately. For seconds on end, I simply stand there listening to the palm-sized melody. As it plays, I take the tiny price tag in my fingers and bring it up to my face, the minuscule cursive writing taking some effort to read. It's affordable. Sort of. Grimacing slightly, I close the lid and make my way to the counter with doll and music box in hand. When I lay the two on the counter, the man behind it sits up and takes stock of them. He doesn't hide very well his surprise at someone of my age buying them. It's painful, but I hand over the money for the two and leave the store with a small opaque bag in hand. Hideaki being there takes me by surprise. "Oh, hi. I thought you'd be at the newsstand," I say. "Akira gave me a call. She's waiting for us at the fountain with Lily." At least that solves the issue of trying to find them again. We head off back to the fountain. Hideaki's immaculate posture and presentation, despite his appearance, makes for a strange contrast even as we walk. Lily and Akira stand there waiting for us, their faces hard to read. "Hey, you ready to go, Shorty?" Hideaki's mood seems to improve as he rejoins her. "See ya, Lily, Hisao. Tell Hanako I said happy birthday." "We will," I answer. "Bye." "Goodbye, Akira." And with that, the two disappear into the fracas of the afternoon city crowd. Turning to Lily, I notice she's carrying a small bag. It's now that I realize why her disposition felt different from before. While Lily's typically the type to wear her emotions on her sleeve, her expression and her tone are clouded and difficult to read. It's more than a little off-putting, but given the effort she's making to hide her emotions, I doubt she wants to be cornered on why she's feeling this way. "Already brought Hanako a present," I say. "Yes. Have you?" "Yeah." "Shall we head back to the bus stop then?" "Okay. There should be a bus back to Yamaku pretty soon." And with that, we begin to walk. It feels strange compared to before. Lily's hand on my forearm feels unusually tense, and the whole atmosphere is extraordinarily awkward. The silence continues for a long while. I really don't like seeing her like this. "Hanako's birthday party is going to have to be held earlier," she says. "Is the 4th going to be all right for you?" I have no other possible obligations anyway, so I reflexively nod. Only afterwards do I remember that doing so is pointless and quickly answer so by speech. She tries to collect herself, a task that looks almost pitiable in how plain it is to see how distant her thoughts are. "Sorry, Hisao. You said the bus would be coming soon, right?" "That's right," I say. But now that she says that, I have an idea. "Actually," I say, "do you have anything to do later today?" "I don't believe so. Why do you ask?" This is the point where I'd normally take your hand and rush you somewhere, but even without that, you'll have to trust me, okay? I take her hand and gently lead her on, her distant face replaced by one of mild surprise and curiosity. As the waitress sets the cup of tea and cup of coffee that I'd ordered onto the table, I thank her before she takes her leave. Truth be told, I really lucked out in finding this cafe. I didn't really know where I was going, rather I was just looking for any cafe that looked relatively nice. Having managed to recover a little, Lily tentatively sits at her cup as I take a long gulp of the coffee in front of me. As I'd hoped, her face lights up as she realizes what flavor it is. "Ah, this is wonderful," she says. "Hisao, how did you know that this was..." I'd asked for French vanilla black tea, hedging my bets that it would be her favorite flavor, or at least one she liked. While I don't really know much about tea, it sounded like one she might appreciate, on the basis of her liking vanilla ice cream. A tea connoisseur I'm definitely not. "It was a lucky guess," I tell her. "You really like tea, don't you?" She puts her teacup down and gives a tiny nod, that familiar small smile thankfully perched on her face once again. "Drinking tea is calming, I think." "With the amount you drink," I say, "are you sure you're not addicted to it? Caffeine addiction's pretty common nowadays." "Did I ever say I wasn't?" she says. She lets out a giggle as my head drops. We all have our vices, I suppose, and there are worse things to be addicted to. "French vanilla black tea, huh? I'll have to remember that." For a while, we both silently drink. It's comforting to have someone like her nearby in such new surroundings, even if it's just the two of us sitting in silence. I begin to wonder if this feeling is the same for her until she sets down her cup. "Hisao, do you mind if I ask you a slightly odd question?" "That depends on the question, I guess." "I was wondering what your favorite color is. Everyone has one, after all." I almost reply before realizing why the seemingly mundane question is actually quite strange. "My favorite color? But..." She gives a pouting look, wanting me to answer anyway. While the answer seems unavoidably wasted on her, there isn't any harm in giving it. "I've always had a thing for green. I'd say that's my favorite." "Green, is it? What kind of things do you think of when contemplating that color?" I think a bit. "I suppose grass fields and trees in summer. The army as well, with camouflage." "Men always seem to like the military," she says. "But that sounds like a nice color. A very nice color." She nods her head a little, as if approving of the choice. Considering how foreign the concept of color is to her mind, labeling it by association seems reasonable enough. "If everyone has a favorite color," I ask, "then what's yours?" "White. I'm told that's the color of snow and of ice cream." "You're no better than me then, if you only like that color because of a favorite food. I guess white is nice too, though." "And speaking of colors, it'll be getting dark soon," I say. "Let me help you up." Lily offers her hand, which I take in mine to help lever her up from her seat at the table. Its softness compared to mine takes me off guard, as I'm really not used to such casual contact. It doesn't seem to bother her at all, though. While it seems obvious why, it feels like just one more ladylike aspect to her. As her hand moves to her pocket, I quickly cut her off. "Don't worry, I'll pay for this," I tell her. "Oh, thank you, Hisao." She gives an earnest smile at the gesture, a reward much greater than that of her words. By the time we step off the bus, it's well and truly dark. We make our way up the hill in silence, both of us behaving a little awkwardly, probably because of the day's events. While I'm still concerned over Lily's withdrawn nature after meeting with her sister, the fact I've managed to cheer her up even slightly feels like a personal victory. But it feels like the air between us has changed. Maybe it's only a bit, but it's something I don't think either of us realized before. That was a date, wasn't it? Lily says. It was. That doesn't elude either of us, the question's answer being so self evident as to be rhetorical. Awkward as it may be, I don't think this feeling is bad. In fact, quite the opposite. I don't know what it is, I certainly can't be sure, but it feels like something a little more than friendship. Understanding? Empathy? Searching for words to adequately describe it is difficult. Nonetheless, would you like to do this again sometime, Lily? I ask, without shopping for presents. The tentative question is met with the same look from Lily as before. Her pale skin makes the rosy tint of her cheeks just slightly more noticeable, and her face, though still pointed to the street ahead of her, lowers. Just a little. Okay. So Hisao and Lily go out and about in the city looking for a present for Hanako. Um, I do like to compare and contrast these, especially the Hanako and Lily route, being that they are so intertwined with each other. The differences as the events go along and the way things play out, the little differences and all are quite striking. For instance, being here that Lily really doesn't have any kind of idea what kind of thing that she's wanting to pick up for Hisao, for Hanako, I mean. And it's more like let's just kind of wander around for a while. And then, of course, later on it becomes Hisao who goes into Othello's Antiques and buys Hanako the little doll instead of it being Lily's gift. Of course, that makes sense, being that there's no real reason for Hisao to buy Hanako a chess set, as they've never played or anything in this particular arc. It does bring to mind, it's going to be interesting. I cannot remember. It's been several months since I played this particular path for the first time, so it's been several months. I cannot remember what it was that Lily actually got her, so it's going to be interesting to find out. We also have to go back to the part where we've talked about the fact that Hisao is not the brightest bulb in the room either, and we just have to say that the little game of tell me where to lick the ice cream cone. Um, if he didn't catch on that Lily knew exactly what she was doing with that whole little game there. Um, yeah. But after their little flirting game there, they hear Akira and their cousin Hideaki in the crowd. Oh, Hideaki, if you knew how much trouble I've had with that boy's name. I keep wanting to call him Hideaki, and I actually have to, whenever I see his name pop up, I have to mentally make a note to myself and prepare myself to say Hideaki and get it to come out right. Anyway, they meet Hideaki and Akira, who happen to be in town. Um, at first, I was thinking that it was a bit of a planned coincidence they were there. But then thinking about it, the fact that Akira brings up the telephone call that Lily has apparently not received from the parents makes me think that it was truly a coincidence after all that they just happened to be there and that it wasn't something that Lily had planned ahead of time. Hideaki is a very interesting little character. Um, Once again, seemingly thrown in there for comic relief, all this time a bit more successfully, maybe. You don't have that slapstick craziness going on. You do have the strange appearance that he seems to dress like a girl, the bow in his hair, and you can't quite see it there, but in other pictures, I think maybe in Shizune's arc, you see that he's wearing like purple stockings with little stars and moons on them. You can see just the hint of one coming up just above the frame right there of, I think, a star on his left thigh. It's almost as if he wears Shizune's hand-me-downs or something. Very strange. If I remember right, it's not ever quite explained in the story here. They never really cover it. Several of the fan fictions get into the case of whenever we go down Shizune's path, you'll see that she has a interesting, shall we say, father, and that Hideaki here kind of dresses up like Shizune and kind of imitates her, kind of trying to get his father's attention because perhaps Shizune is the favorite child and therefore he tries to mimic Shizune and maybe he'll get some of the love and attention as well. Interesting idea. Like I said, it's not canon. It is in the fan fiction, but it's as good as explanation as any. We also get the important bit of information here that Lilly and Shizune are first cousins and are actually related to each other, which comes as a great surprise to Hisao and helps to explain part of the bad blood between them. As they say, there is no feud like a family feud. So Akira shanghais Lilly and drags her off to talk about this mysterious phone call that he's apparently gotten. Meanwhile, we are kind of put on babysitting duty with Hideaki, and in wandering around, end up going into Othello's Antiques by ourselves this time rather than accompanying Lilly. That's where we decide to buy Hanako a doll, and then we pick up a little palm-sized music box, which is an interesting purchase. Wonder who that could be. All we can really say to that is maybe a little case of Hisao and Lilly sitting in a tree. Kissing. Joining back up with Lilly and Akira after their little conversation, Kira picks up Hideaki and they go wandering off. Lilly being still rather upset and distraught, although hiding it well. We take her to that little cafe that we went to with Hanako toward the end of Hanako's path and get her the French vanilla black tea. Something I have tried since then. I have actually found it in a kind of a boutique store around here and sampled it. And yeah, I'll stick to my green tea. Thank you very much. It's definitely an acquired taste, perhaps. But we get her cheered back up again, find some interesting information, like the fact she is interested in what people's favorite colors are, hers being white, and Hisao's, interestingly, being green, which is also my favorite. Which is something that I feel that I can say out loud because, all those places where, you go on the net and you've put in a password and then they ask you a security question like, what was your mother's maiden name? What high school did you go to? What was your dog's name? What street did you grow up on? What's your favorite color? Don't ever answer any of those questions, honestly, people. I mean, seriously, show a little sense, okay? So the evening comes to an end. They make their way very late back to Yamaku, and on the way back have the realization that they've just been out on a date. And they seem to have enjoyed it. And as Lilly says when asked if she'd like to go out again, okay. So there we have it. We will see how things progress. Hopefully down the road. I don't know. Like I said, it's been a couple of months, literally, since I played this. I think November or December was when I was playing Lily's Path. So I have no clue where we go from here. I know eventually we find out what the phone call's about. We eventually have Hanako's birthday, but I have no idea how much happens in between. So I'm kind of as excited as everyone else to see where we go from here. So we will see you next time, and thanks for reading along with us.